In this section of videos, we're going to be taking a look at the accounts payable module. So I'm going to go to my applications dropdown, navigate to accounts payable. And first off, we're going to go to the setup tab and we're going to take a quick look at configuration. So I know we've already gone through configuration. You're probably okay with all of that, but I just want to scroll all the way down here to my pay bills defaults and just mention that you can put in defaults here for your pay bill screen. So I have my payment method defaulted as check and I do not have any bank account selected. So if I right click and duplicate my tab and then I go to accounts payable, all tab and pay bills, when I get in here, then my payment method is defaulting in as check, but I do not have any default bank account coming up because I don't have that set up at my configuration level. So you can see it's check and blank here. So if I was to put in a bank account at my configuration level, then it would default that in. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to select my ET checking for my bank account. I'm going to save that. And then I'm going to go back into the all tab pay bills. And now when I'm in the pay bills screen, my bank account is defaulting in as my ET checking and my payment method is still check. So it's just going to save you having to do those additional clicks every time you come into the pay bill screen if you set that default configuration level. And just because you have it set as check doesn't mean you can't change that. So that can be overridden. You can change to ACH or joint check, whatever you're doing. And you can also edit the bank account if you had multiple bank accounts in the system. You also have the ability to do those defaults by entity. So let's say you had multiple entities. You could click here, go to your Timberline GC entity level, and you can go to accounts payable, setup, configuration, and we're going down to the same place on our config. And we're just going to say for this particular entity, I actually want to use ACH as my payment method, and I want to use my ET checking as my bank account. And then I'll save that. And then that means when I go into pay bills for my Timberline GC, it's going to default in ACH as my payment method rather than check. So you can do that at entity level, and also it just saves you having to do those additional clicks when you go into the pay bill screen. So it's nice to just get that set up right off the bat. So also within the accounts payable module, like with every other module, we have a report section over here. And as always, it's going to be your out of the box reports here. And then, your custom reports, if you're setting up reports in the system and you want them to become a part of your menu, you can send them to the custom reports section here just for easier access. And these out of the box reports that you have, we're limited. I think I've mentioned this already, but if we look at our registers, let's look at our check register. You have your filters and formatting options, which are static in the system. You can't edit that. So you can customize by the filters and the formats that come out of the box. But if you wanted to add additional filters, that cannot be done. You'd have to just build a new report. We can't actually edit these reports. So your check register, you can have, specific vendor, specific location, specific department, from and to check numbers if you're just looking at a specific range. You can show only your voided checks, different options here with your check register. And then your aging report, it's going to be same thing on the vendor aging. You have your out of the box filters and formats that can't be changed. You can put in a range of vendors. You can look at this by vendor type, filter by location, department, put in your time periods and format it how you prefer if you want that to be summary or detailed. So you can play around with those reports, but these out of the box ones, unfortunately, we cannot edit and add additional filters to them. Also within the accounts payable module, we can close down our subledger. So if you're closing your subledgers before you close down GL, then you can go ahead and do that. I am at top level, so it's asking me which entity I want to close down. So you can choose a specific entity, or you can leave it blank and you can close AP for all of your entities up to whatever period you select here. So let's say I just leave that blank and say I'm closing everything up until January 2022. And then, if you're closing down GL, it's going to automatically close your subledgers. And then if you're reopening GL, it gives you the option to reopen your subledgers if you need to make transactions with them when you're reopening it. But you can also just go into the subledger. You can go into accounts payable and you can open that up again if you need to make transactions within that particular time period. And I know I showed this on another video, but I want to mention again, on your dashboards, you can add in that close through summary, which shows you the dates that your subledgers have been closed through, and it splits it out by entity. So I know I mentioned this before, but it is a nice one that a lot of people ask for. So it on a dashboard, you're going to add component. It's general component type, and it's called close through summary. And then when you pick close through summary, you'll do entity view. So just a nice one to mention. I know I kind of harp on that a little bit. People do ask for it, so I like to bring it up. And then if you want to use compliance within the system, compliance is driven by the purchasing module. So if you're hoping to get lien waiver records, you need to make sure that those transactions that you want to generate lien records for are going through the purchasing module. So you will not be able to generate lien waiver records based off of bills that go directly into AP. So anything that goes into purchasing, automatically gets pushed over to accounts payable. But if you're trying to generate compliance records, it is driven by the purchasing module, which means you have to be putting those transactions in through purchasing. It's based off of primary document, which is in purchasing. So let's say your subcontracts, your purchase orders, or we do have a lot of clients that set up a workflow called vendor invoices. So they put everything in through the vendor invoices workflow rather than putting bills directly into AP, because they're trying to generate compliance records for those bills. So I just wanted to bring that up. There's a whole section that we do on compliance, but it is important for you to know that it's driven by the purchasing module. You're not going to be able to get lien waiver records generated off of bills that go directly into AP. So they're building out compliance, but I don't think that that's something that's going to change going forward, because it lives within purchasing.